Dear viewers, this is part 4 in the 4-part series on the organization of the human body in the Medicine for Common Man series. Examples of control mechanisms: regulation of oxygen and carbon dioxide concentrations in the extracellular fluid. Because oxygen is one of the major substances required for chemical reactions in cells, the body has a special control mechanism to maintain an almost constant and exact concentration of oxygen in the extracellular fluid. This mechanism depends principally on the chemical characteristics of hemoglobin, which is present in red blood cells. Hemoglobin combines with oxygen as the blood passes through the lungs. Then, as the blood passes through the tissue capillaries, hemoglobin, because of its own strong chemical affinity for oxygen, does not release oxygen into the tissue fluid if too much oxygen is already there. However, if oxygen concentration in the tissue fluid is too low, sufficient oxygen is released to re-establish an adequate concentration. Thus, regulation of oxygen concentration in the tissues relies to a great extent on the chemical characteristics of hemoglobin. This regulation is called the oxygen buffering function of hemoglobin. Carbon dioxide concentration in the extracellular fluid is regulated in a much different way. Carbon dioxide is a major end product of oxidative reactions in cells. If all the carbon dioxide formed in the cells continued to accumulate in the tissue fluids, all energy-giving reactions of the cells would cease. Fortunately, a higher than normal carbon dioxide concentration in the blood excites the respiratory center, causing a person to breathe rapidly and deeply. This deep, rapid breathing increases expiration of carbon dioxide and therefore removes excess carbon dioxide from the blood and tissue fluids. This process continues until the concentration returns to normal. Dear listeners, by the way, this educational video is made possible by Prescribon, the makers of e-prescription software for digital prescriptions, available freely for doctors on the website www.prescribon.com. Doctors who are interested in this e-prescription can freely avail of its vast collection of more than 100,000 e-prescriptions. Regulation of arterial blood pressure. Several systems contribute to arterial blood pressure regulation. One of these, the baroreceptor system, is an excellent example of a rapidly acting control mechanism. In the walls of the bifurcation region of the carotid arteries in the neck, and also in the arch of the aorta in the thorax, are many nerve receptors called baroreceptors that are stimulated by stretch of the arterial wall. When arterial pressure rises too high, the baroreceptors send barrages of nerve impulses to the medulla of the brain. Here, these impulses inhibit the vasomotor center, which in turn decreases the number of impulses transmitted from the vasomotor center through the sympathetic nervous system to the heart and blood vessels. Lack of these impulses causes diminished pumping activity by the heart and dilation of peripheral blood vessels, allowing increased blood flow through the vessels. Both these effects decrease the arterial pressure, moving it back toward normal. Conversely, a decrease in arterial pressure below normal relaxes the stretch receptors, allowing the vasomotor center to become more active than usual, thereby causing vasoconstriction and increased heart pumping. The initial decrease in arterial pressure thus initiates negative feedback mechanisms that raise arterial pressure back toward normal. Normal ranges and physical characteristics of important extracellular fluid constituents. Some important constituents and physical characteristics of extracellular fluid are controlled within a narrow normal range, and maximum limits are set by the body. Values outside these ranges are often caused by illness, injury, or major environmental challenges. Otherwise, death can ensue. Most important are the limits beyond which abnormalities can cause death. For example, an increase in the body temperature of only 11 degree Fahrenheit or 7 degrees centigrade above normal can lead to a vicious cycle of increasing cellular metabolism that destroys the cells. Acid base balance in the body with a normal pH value of 7.4 and lethal values only about zero point 0.5 on either side of normal. Whenever the potassium ion concentration decreases to less than one third normal, paralysis may result from the inability of the nerves to carry signals. Alternatively, if potassium ion concentration increases to 2 or more times normal, the heart muscle is likely to be severely depressed. Also, when the calcium ion concentration falls below about one half normal, a person is likely to experience tetanic contraction of muscles throughout the body because of the spontaneous generation of excess nerve impulses in peripheral nerves. When the glucose concentration falls below one half normal, a person frequently exhibits extreme mental irritability and sometimes even has convulsions. These examples should give one an appreciation for the necessity of the vast numbers of control systems that keep the body operating in health. In the absence of any one of these controls, serious body malfunction or death can result. Characteristics of control systems. The aforementioned examples of homeostatic control mechanisms are only a few of the many thousands in the body, all of which have some common characteristics. Negative feedback nature of most control systems. One of the most common measures in the control system is the negative feedback mechanism responsible for homeostasis. Negative feedback requires at least four elements. First, the system senses the vital parameter, example glucose level. Second, the system compares the input signal with some internal reference value called a set point. Third, the system proportionally enhances the signal to produce some sort of output signal, example release of insulin. Fourth, the output of signal activates an effector mechanism, example glucose uptake and metabolism, to bring the vital parameter close to the set point, example decrease of blood glucose levels back to normal. A single feedback loop often does not operate in isolation, but rather as part of a larger network of controls. Thus, a complex interplay may exist among feedback loops within single cells, within a tissue, within an organ or organ system, or at the level of the whole body. Another theme of homeostasis is redundancy. The more vital a parameter is, the more systems the body mobilizes to regulate it. If one system should fail, others are there to help maintain homeostasis. All this maintenance of a constant internal environment comes at a price, that is, energy. A well regulated parameter is generally in a steady state. That is, its value is constant because the body or the cell carefully matches actions that lower the parameter value with other actions that raise it. The net effect is that the vital parameter is held at a constant value. Each cell plays a special role in the overall function of the body. In return, the body, which is the sum of all these cells, provides the internal environment appropriate for the life of each cell. As part of the bargain, each cell or organ must respect the needs of the body as a whole and not run amok for its own greedy interests. The adaptability of an organism depends on its ability to alter its response. Indeed, flexible feedback loops are at the root of many forms of physiological adaptation. At higher altitudes, there is a proportionate increase in breathing rate to increase the intake of oxygen. Note, oxygen levels at different heights above the earth are sea level 21%, at 1000 meters 18%, 2000 meters 16%, and 3000 meters only 14%. Most control systems of the body act by negative feedback, which can be explained by reviewing some of the homeostatic control systems mentioned previously. In the regulation of carbon dioxide concentration, a high concentration of carbon dioxide in the extracellular fluid increases pulmonary ventilation. This in turn decreases the extracellular fluid carbon dioxide concentration because the lungs expire greater amounts of carbon dioxide from the body. Thus, the high concentration of carbon dioxide initiates events that decrease the concentration toward normal. Conversely, a carbon dioxide concentration that falls too low results in feedback to increase the concentration. In the arterial pressure regulating mechanisms, a high pressure causes a series of reactions that promote reduced pressure, or a low pressure causes a series of reactions that promote increased pressure. In both cases, these effects are negative with respect to the initiating stimulus. Therefore, in general, if some factor becomes excessive or deficient, a control system initiates negative feedback which consists of a series of changes that return the factor toward a certain mean value, thus maintaining homeostasis.
Positive feedback can sometimes be useful. The body sometimes uses positive feedback to its advantage. Blood clotting is an example of a valuable use of positive feedback. When a blood vessel is ruptured and a clot begins to form, multiple enzymes called clotting factors are activated within the clot. Some of these enzymes act on other inactivated enzymes of the immediately adjacent blood, thus causing more blood clotting. This process continues until the hole in the vessel is plugged and bleeding no longer occurs. On occasion, this mechanism can get out of hand and cause formation of unwanted blood clots. In fact, this is what initiates most acute heart attacks, which can be caused by a clot beginning on the inside surface of an atherosclerotic plaque in a coronary artery and then growing until the artery is blocked. Childbirth is another situation in which positive feedback is valuable. When uterine contractions become strong enough for the baby's head to begin pushing through the cervix, stretching of the cervix sends signals through the uterine muscle back to the body of the uterus, causing even more powerful contractions. Thus, the uterine contractions stretch the cervix, and the cervical stretch causes stronger contractions. When this process becomes powerful enough, the baby is born. If they are not powerful enough, the contractions usually die out and a few days pass before they begin again. Another important use of positive feedback is for the generation of nerve signals. Stimulation of the membrane of a nerve fiber causes slight leakage of sodium ions through sodium channels in the nerve membrane to the fiber's interior. These sodium ions entering the fiber then change the membrane potential, which in turn causes more opening of channels, more change of potential, still more opening of channels, and so forth. Thus, a slight leak becomes an explosion of sodium entering the interior of the nerve fiber, which creates the nerve action potential. This action potential in turn causes electrical current to flow along the outside and inside of the fiber and initiates additional action potentials. This process continues until the nerve signal goes all the way to the end of the nerve fiber. More complex types of control systems: feed forward and adaptive control. The nervous system contains great numbers of interconnected control mechanisms. Some are simple feedback systems similar to those already discussed. Many are not. For example, some movements of the body occur so rapidly that there is not enough time for nerve signals to travel from the peripheral parts of the body all the way to the brain and then back to the periphery again to control the movement. Therefore, the brain uses a mechanism called feed-forward control to cause required muscle contractions. Sensory nerve signals from the moving parts apprise the brain about whether the movement is performed correctly. If not, the brain corrects the feed-forward signals that it sends to the muscles the next time the movement is required. Then, if still further correction is necessary, this process will be performed again for subsequent movements. This process is called adaptive control. Thus, one can see how complex the feedback control systems of the body can be. A person's life depends on all of them. Physiological variability. Some physiological variables, such as plasma concentration of potassium, calcium, and hydrogen ions, are tightly regulated. Others, such as body weight and adiposity, show wide variations among different individuals and even in the same individual at different stages of life. Blood pressure, cardiac pumping, metabolic rate, nervous system activity, hormones, and other physiological variables change throughout the day as we move about and engage in normal daily activities. Therefore, when we discuss normal values, it is with the understanding that many of the body's control systems are constantly reacting to perturbations and that variability may exist among different individuals, depending on body weight and height, diet, age, sex, environment, genetics, and other factors. For simplicity, discussion of physiological functions often focuses on average 70 kg young lean male. However, the male no longer weighs an average of 70 kilograms. He now weighs over 88 kilograms, and the average female weighs over 76 kilograms, more than the average man in the 1960s. Body weight has also increased substantially in most industrialized countries during the past 40 to 50 years. Summary: automation of the body. This discussion has briefly outlined the overall organization of the body and the means whereby the different parts of the body operate in harmony. To summarize, the body is actually a social order of about 35 to 40 trillion cells organized into different functional structures, some of which are called organs. Each functional structure contributes its share to the maintenance of homeostasis in the extracellular fluid, which is called the interior environment or internal environment. As long as normal conditions are maintained in this internal environment, the cells of the body continue to live and function properly. Each cell benefits from homeostasis, and in turn, each cell contributes its share toward the maintenance of homeostasis. This reciprocal interplay provides continuous automaticity of the body. A hallmark of this healthy automatic control, for example, of walking, is walking automaticity. which is the ability of the nervous system to successfully coordinate movements of the body with minimal use of attention demanding measures. Other examples of automaticity is that of the heart and respiration. This healthy automaticity continues in life until one or more functional systems lose their ability to contribute their share of function. Moderate dysfunction leads to sickness. Extreme dysfunction leads to death. And so, dear readers, this is the end of part 4 of the 4-part series on the organization of the human body in the Medicine for Common Man series. Dear readers, thank you for watching.